Well, Arizona is cementing itself atop the Big 12 as a real contender in the best conference in America. Speaking of best in America, is Tobe Awaka the best rebounder in the in the world? All that and more. 30 seconds. It's the AZ Wildcats post-game show with a special guest. Don't go anywhere. Welcome to the AZ Wildcats post-game show with a special guest this time. I got my guy Saul Bookman. You know him from everything he does for us over here at PHNX, but most recently his appearances over on the McHale Madness podcast. Saul, how you doing tonight?
Fantastic. That was a great game. I really liked the energy in that arena was fantastic. The performance of the Wildcats, at times a little shaky in the first half, but I thought they really came together in the second half. Like, so much to talk about, so much to get into, and I appreciate you having me on today. This is fantastic.
Yeah, of course. As we all know, my guy Damon is down in New Orleans for the Super Bowl, and I'm excited to have my guy Saul to break this one down tonight. Let's start with the foundational level of this one. The environment in Provo was top notch. Even through the television, that crowd was incredibly loud. I saw on Twitter, we're going to talk about this tweet right here from our guy Mitch Harper, who covers BYU. He's a beat reporter over in Provo, who said the Marriott Center was quiet when BYU was down 58-52. Arizona fans started some U of A chants, and it wasn't the only time. There was a couple U of A chants that broke out, and BYU fans kind of responded with their own chant. But he says the only time he can remember an opposing fan base making itself heard in the Marriott Center in the past decade. And I just thought that was, vital to bring up because you mentioned it, I think, on McHale Madness earlier this year. This is Arizona's chance to really cement itself as a real deal basketball school in the minds of these, I guess bigger cities and bigger conferences, but just teams that really haven't played Arizona is the point I'm getting at. Haven't experienced an Arizona basketball team, and I think this was a great environment to kind of get your feet wet. You know what I mean?
Well, if you don't know, now you know.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, but if BYU, being just a little bit north of Arizona, doesn't understand what University of Arizona basketball is all about, then they can stay sleeping because they definitely slept in the last 10 minutes of this game. That's for damn sure. So, it was a terrific performance all the way around. And like, listen, even on the road, like, I do appreciate a good fan base on the road. And I thought the BYU fans were obviously biased. Every single call that went against them, they just, they lost their minds. But, they were all legit, and I just thought it was a good environment. Like, I could see what the appeal is for BYU and how that could be a pretty tough place to play. But, at the end of the day, the University of Arizona is the University of Arizona. They're just dogs. That's just what they do. They are a program that is seasoned to the nth degree, and that was clearly evidenced in that last section of the game tonight.
Yeah, Arizona really did kind of flex its muscle, so to speak, in the last 5 or so minutes of this game. And I want to talk about kind of how Arizona pulled away in the last half of this second half there. I thought the ball denial on their three-point shooters was incredible. Not letting BYU get into their sets until way later in the shot clock than they had intended really put a rush on their offense, and Arizona's tenacity on and off the ball really made it difficult for their shooters. There were some open shots. There's always going to be some open shots when you got guys like Carter Bryant, who is still kind of finding his legs out there. I saw Trey Townsend kind of have some lapses. ADO, not the most defensively sound out there. But for the most part, Arizona did a great job of not letting their shooters get open and get in a rhythm. What did you think was the key to that kind of pulling away at the end of this game?
Yeah, I thought it was two things. First, obviously, to your point, I think in the first half, they, those same old Arizona tendencies kind of popped back up, where they lost their shooters, just in rotation and they weren't aware of where they were at. But in the second half, they definitely cleaned it up. But I thought the other key was they weren't allowing BYU to get rhythm shots. And what I mean by that is like those drives to the basket that Hall was getting, those are continuation kind of plays. Like it keeps you in a rhythm offensively. It keeps everything, the momentum going for you, right? What Arizona did in the last 10 minutes of that game was when they were coming off the pick and roll, instead of shooting to the hip of the player on the perimeter, they shot in front of him as fast as they could. They had to provide a little bit more effort to get in front of that guy instead of hoping that the defender whose man is screening was going to be able to chug and recover. Instead, they weren't waiting on the chug. They were trying to beat their man over the top. And because they did that, they prevented BYU those open lanes to the basket. And then BYU had to kind of take it out a little bit further. And the only one that was really able to capitalize at all was Hall on that kind of step back three that he hit. After that, BYU basically went silent the rest of the game. So a terrific small little adjustment in that second half that I thought the Wildcats made, and it made all the difference in the world.
Yeah, especially with a crowd like you said that at the drop of a hat was getting real loud and real wild at any moment. That was one of my keys to the game when I was previewing it. If you haven't seen that, I guess it's kind of useless now, but still go check it out. Show me some love. But one of the
It'll
things
be the
I
same
said,
thing when they come back to Tucson. Just rewatch that video.
exactly. Well said, well said. But don't tell that again because I will drop a new preview. So don't say that one again. But what I was gonna say though was I think that Arizona did a great job in the second half of just overall being tenacious on defense. Right? It was a physical game. It might not have seemed as physical as other matchups Arizona's had this year, but if you really were watching close, when players are coming down with these rebounds, there was some hand checking and there was some slapping at the ball, and it was chippy at times and down low. And I think that Arizona was able to out physical BYU when it mattered most.
Have you ever played at a church, in a church league? Like those are some of the most physical games I've ever played in. Like I played, at a Mormon church before, and it's not like, oh, we're just out here to have fun. No, dudes get physical, and so it's kind of funny that we're talking about BYU right now because that's exactly what I took away from this. It was a very physical game. I thought the referees made some sus calls. Okay,
No, very
like
sus,
Jaden
very
Bradley
sus.
hitting that flagrant, I thought that was egregious.
But
And
even
then
yeah,
and then later on in the game, there was another one that I thought was just a clean block, and they were just kind of called. But outside of that, I thought it was basically pretty consistent overall, and I did think that Arizona was able to be as physical as they needed to be to take advantage of BYU. And I thought it was, listen, defensively, Arizona's starting to definitely. I think defensively they are finding their identity more and more every single game, and that is becoming their calling card. And then the offense on top of it, and key players are starting to rise up to the occasion and really fill those shoes. And I love to see this all start to come together at just the right time. I mean, listen, Arizona has now just won 3 straight quad one games. Okay. They just beat Iowa State, ASU, and then obviously tonight against BYU. They're now 6-6 on the season in quad one wins after starting off 0-5. That is phenomenal. And their resume is just getting better and better. And then they got a big game this weekend, obviously on Saturday against Texas Tech, another quad one game against another team that's going to be in the top 15 at that time. I think they're 13 right now. And it's a rematch. And we saw how they fared in the first rematch against West Virginia, now minus Tecker DeVries. But this one, I truly believe Arizona is going to be able to bounce back and take care of. So, I mean, you're looking at a 10-1 in the conference record, possibly 11-1 after the weekend's over, heading into next week when you have a couple odd matchups, I would say, especially at Kansas State.
Yeah, you kind of teased it there with the Texas Tech matchup, and I kind of wanted to just kind of give people even more perspective on the kind of quality opponent that Arizona is going to be facing at the tail end of this season. 3 teams in the Ken Palm four teams, in the Ken Palm top 10, Iowa State, Texas Tech, Kansas, and Houston remaining on Arizona's schedule. So it's a tough one. It's a tough stretch that Arizona is going to encounter. And before you go there real quick, I've been saying all year, the most important thing in the Big 12, right, when you have all this competition, is just banking victories, because you never know what's going to happen in these tougher games. And so Arizona, beating Oklahoma State, beating Colorado, banking these wins you're supposed to bank, critical, because it gives you the foundation to stand on when you go into Provo and you face a gritty game like this. Yeah, you come out on top, but if Arizona lost tonight, they're still okay because of the things that they've done for themselves in the beginning of conference play. Go ahead.
Exactly, and like Corey said on Mikhail Madness, he said Arizona needs to go 17-3 if they have a hope to win the Big 12 outright, right? And right now they're 10-1. So you're thinking, according to Corey's metrics, they just got to go 7-2 down the stretch, and they're home free. I didn't think it was possible at the beginning of the season, but obviously he was onto something. In the last, so Arizona only has 5 more quad 1 games left, okay, and only 2 of those are at home. Tech this weekend, and then Houston in about 2 weeks. Those are going to be critical games to win at home, especially because the last 3 quad 1 games they have left are Baylor on the road, Iowa State on the road, and Kansas on the road, all 3 away from home. So those are going to be tough venues, tough games, and who knows what's on the line in those games too. So there's just a lot. And then there's those sneaky games. And, I think one of the things that I think we are all learning right now, I haven't felt like Arizona is necessarily just not shown up for a game this yet so far. I had that feeling so many times in the last 40 years watching them in the Pac-12 and the Pac-10, where they would go to an Oregon State and have a letdown, or they go to a Washington State and have a letdown. They have not showed that yet. And I'm very appreciative of that, and I hope that's not coming. There, like I said, the 2 sneaky games that they have left, in my opinion, are BYU still to come here in Tucson. You just never know with the 3-point shooting team how that's going to go, right? And then on top of that, going to Kansas State, who we just saw absolutely mollywop Iowa State in Ames. Okay, nobody saw that coming, and then they turn around and they beat ASU after being down by 15 in the first half, and they just smoked them the rest of that first half and came back, and then they ended up winning by 1. Shout out Jaden Quittenance for missing those 2 free throws, by the way.
Man, I can't believe that.
Man, that was crazy.
I mean, I can believe it, but I can't believe that.
That's crazy. Hey, you hate to see it, but also you love to see it. So,
no, exactly.
But yeah,
and, when you started that point, I had this crazy smile on my face, because not only did Corey Williams, who knows a thing or two about basketball, say that Arizona needed to go 17-3. Me and Damon did our conference predictions. I also said Arizona would be 17-3 in this conference. I just want that known. Actually, let me show you, Saul. I can't show you right now, but if I could show you, I would show you, Saul. And I did predict that Arizona would go 17-3 in this conference. So yeah, like you said, 7-3 I think is what they have. To 7-2 is it at the remaining to go 17-3?
7-2. If they have 9 games left, if they go 7-2, they'll finish up 17-3.
Yeah, see, that's key for this Arizona squad.
And the other key to this is the 4th place team right now has 4 losses. So yeah. Arizona basically, as long as they don't fumble the bag and go anything worse than 6-3 down the stretch, they will be a top 4 seed in the Big 12 tournament, which, if you guys don't know and you haven't watched yet, if you haven't seen the bracket, it's kind of a different bracket. All 16 teams make it, but the bottom 8 play in that first day, which is that Tuesday, and then the second kind of group of 8 play on that Wednesday, depending on who wins that first day, and then the top 4 seeds get basically what you would equate to 2 byes, and they don't play until Thursday. So these other teams that they're going to be playing have either played 1 or possibly 2 games by the time they match up with Arizona on that Thursday. And that's what you want, right? That's the quarterfinal, and then you just got to win 2 games to get to the championship. So they would be set up for success. So Arizona's in really good shape right now. They got to handle business, can't slip up, but they're looking pretty good.
Arizona is really putting themselves in a great position as they just slowly keep climbing these bracketology seeding charts and all of these things. And I think, you spoke to it earlier, right? Things coming together at the right time for Arizona. And I kind of wanted to talk about Caleb Love on that same topic, because Excuse me there. I had to clear my throat. But Caleb Love has really been putting it all together at the right time this season. And we've talked about his scoring at nauseum. Arizona fans have, right? It's kind of starting to get a little bit more consistent again. He had a good night tonight shooting the ball, kind of doing everything tonight. Honestly, he had a good night. But I think his defense, I tweeted this earlier, I think his defense has maybe been the best of his entire career. Far in college. I think he's been the most active defensively. His hands have been awesome in the passing lanes. His playmaking is evolving. Corey, I forget, I think it was Mark Neely was Corey's broadcast partner tonight. He brought that up, that the decision-making of Caleb Love has been wonderful. He's making almost all the right decisions almost constantly, and I think that's been the biggest key, right? Because a player like Caleb Love, who is known mostly for, hucking up shots, which is not all of what he does, but that is the narrative on Caleb Love. For him to kind of shut all that out and just be able to try to make the right decision on a play-to-play basis, I think has been huge for not only his maturity as a player, but just overall his effectiveness as a player. So, like, what do you see out of Caleb Love? Do you think his game is starting to round out? And do you see it maybe finding some consistency here down the stretch?
Yeah, consistency. I've long always said that if Caleb Love attacks the paint, doesn't necessarily have to get to the rim, but if he attacks the paint, he's a different kind of version of himself. Because by attacking the paint, he's either going to get fouled, get a bucket, or drop off somebody else for a nice, easy shot. And I think when that happens, he starts to build that confidence, and then he extends it out. And what I love about Caleb Love is if you ever watch Caleb Love in the first 10 minutes of the game, he very infrequently just chucks and ducks, right? He usually kind of feels the game and lets the game come to him. And for those of you who have played basketball, whether in high school or in college at a higher level, one of the things that coaches always say to players that are trying to force it is like, stop forcing it. Just let the game come to you. When the open shot comes, take the open shot. Make the smart play. Just let the game come to you, because when you let that happen, inevitably you're going to find your rhythm and you're going to feel good when you're in that game. And then once you see a bucket or two go down, then you're going to play better. That's what's happening with Caleb Love. And there was a key moment when Catchings hit a three at about the 10:51 mark, and Arizona blew a 6-point lead coming out of a timeout. And Caleb Love immediately, after they lost the lead, they were down by one, immediately hits a three to put Arizona back on top. And that was the last time they trailed in the game. And that shot, because the crowd had come back into it, I think they were on a 7-0 run. BYU was, because Arizona was up by 6. And so the crowd was really trying to find a reason to get back into it. They got back into it, and Caleb Love basically shut it down. And then Arizona went on, I think it was a 12-0 run out right after that, and basically got control of the game. So Caleb Love was the instigator of that moment. And I just thought, and then when you talk about his defense, it was fantastic. I mean, he continues to improve game after game after game. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. The best season of defense that Caleb Love has played, especially once we got to Big 12 play. I have not seen him play this level of defense before in his career. He has been outstanding. And that's why I keep saying, yes, I know people had these crazy ideas that Josan Sainon was going to be, we should have got him instead of Caleb Love. Arizona's ceiling was always going to be higher with Caleb Love playing at a high level than a freshman that was unknown in terms of what he was going to be able to produce at the college level. You just didn't know. And while he's had moments at ASU, that's great. He's not Caleb Love, and you saw that on Saturday. You saw that tonight. You saw that the game before last game. And so I think Caleb Love is starting to round into form, and as long as he can stay consistent, that's the key. Obviously, we know this. As long as he can stay consistent, Arizona can make some significant noise against the best teams in the country. The consistency is the key. But I think what's happening, though, his defense is kind of giving him that confidence to be consistent. I think it's all feeding itself. When you feel good on defense and you know you're at least contributing, then you can live with whatever happens on the offensive side, no matter how bad the night goes. But if you're not contributing in any way, shape, or form, that's when the head starts to come down. That's when the pouting starts to happen. That's when you start to get a little lax and you let your teammates down. And he has avoided that in this last basically 15-game stretch.
Yeah, and Saul, I do hate to do this to you, but, unlike Caleb Love's jump shot, My mouse has died. Would you believe that?
Oh,
Technical
no.
difficulty over on my side. Our
No.
guy Corey Williams has tried to call, and I couldn't answer the call, Saul.
Oh,
So if you
no.
could just answer this one question for me while I go grab a mouse really fast. I'm sorry, everyone at home.
I got you.
I did see this quick little tidbit, and I'll cue you up, and I'll answer this myself when I get back. 10 NBA scouts were in attendance tonight from 6 different teams. Now, obviously, Demin, I didn't really know a consistent pronunciation for that, but Demin, he has some lottery dreams. Carter Bryant has some first round dreams as well, and that's where my mind went. Once I saw the NBA scouts in attendance, I thought, Carter Bryant, it's been a long day without you, my friend. And I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. You know, I'm scared that Carter Bryant might be too good to come back next year, Saul. And what do you think about that one? While I go get this mouse for us here.
Go ahead, go get the mouse. I'll talk about Carter Bryant because I would love to talk about Carter Bryant. First, Carter Bryant, phenomenal athlete, phenomenal player. I love what he brings to the table. Go get your mouse. I got you. Phenomenal talent.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. I don't know.
As I was saying. Because literally, as soon as you got up, like I said something about Carter Bryant, and then it just cut off. I was like, "Oh man, what just happened here?"
I think what happened was, DRF Desiree Reed Francois heard us, spilling the tea about how Carter Bryant is going to be out of here if the NBA scouts get a load of him, and she said, cut the mics, cut the show. Sorry about that, chat. We are back. We definitely, it wasn't even the mouse, Francisco. It wasn't the. I can't even blame the mouse on this one. This was the internet, the good old fashioned internet.
We're just gonna edit that part out post. But anyway, like I was saying about Carter Bryant, he still makes freshman tendencies. He still has freshman errors. Still has freshman tendencies that he needs to clean up. However, the biggest thing right now is that even though he has the talent to play at a high level, he still needs things that he needs to perfect and get a little bit better at because he's not going to get that opportunity in the NBA. Okay. He's going to have to develop at a quicker rate. And I think he needs one more year. I truly believe if he came back for his sophomore year, you're talking about a player that not only would be a lottery pick, surefire lottery pick, skill set, body, all much stronger, better, smarter, faster, the whole 9 yards. I think you're talking about a conference player of the year candidate. I think you're talking about one of the best players in the country, not just one of the best freshmen in the country. And so like NBA scouts can drool all they want, but man, Carter, this is my message to you. Carter, right here, okay? Come back and be big time, okay? Get your name up in the rafters. That's what it's all about, the University of Arizona. Get your name up in the rafters. And you can only do that if you're a freshman of the year or a player of the year candidate. You know what I'm saying? So, Carter, come back. Be that dude. Be the man next year because you got the skill sets. You just got to clean some things up. And I just don't know if there's enough time this season to find yourself in those moments to be able to clean it up enough to be a lottery pick, because the goal shouldn't be just to get drafted, and it shouldn't be just to be drafted in the first round. No, this kid's got talent to be a lottery pick. He should not be messing around with anything past the 12th pick of the draft. So be a top 10 pick, and you can only do that if you come back, because right now you're not a lottery pick. You're a first rounder, probably not a lottery pick. Be a lottery pick. Make that money, get that guarantee, because you never know how long it's going to last.
Right, and I think I was talking to Damon about this when we were watching our last game here in the office. I was telling Damon, I think if Carter Bryant is going in the low 30s, high 20s, he should come back. And I'm not just being biased. I think the levels of money you can make in that from 20 to 10 is drastically different, right? And I think it's worth it. And not just as an Arizona fan, I think Carter Bryant, like you said, would not only be one of the best players on the West Coast, but the best players on any coast by that. And also the basketball and football guy, I like where your head is at. Koa Pete and Carter Bryant would be absolutely insane.
So what's funny is I've seen Koa Pete in person play, and Koa's a big kid. He's a big kid. He's strong, got broad shoulders, right? Carter Bryant is like basically the same size, if not a little bit taller. Like, it's kind of crazy. And Carter Bryant's length is it's unbelievable. And I think he's slightly better athletically right now than Koa is. But I mean, both of those guys, oh my, I can't get ahead of myself. because I don't want to be let down.
I'm ready to be hurt again. I'm ready to be
happen.
hurt again with the Carter Bryant saga. But we have more to talk about this U of A. What is going on in my brain? The internet, my brain, both just shutting down. The U of A versus BYU game. Huge victory in Provo for our Arizona Wildcats. But first, let's talk a little bit about some of our fine sponsors on this here program. Well, ladies and gentlemen, tonight when I go home, I'll be trying to unwind at a very late hour using some of our great product that we've gotten from our friends over at Cult Cannabis. And if you partake in cannabis usage, make sure you're heading over to TrueLeave. You're heading over to TrueLeave and getting some Cult Cannabis and telling them that PHNX and Kevin sent you himself. I just want to let people know that magic marker strain that is exclusive to TrueLeave is officially back in stock. Cult Cannabis heard all of your cries and they brought back that magic marker strain. It is one of the best that they have to offer. I love that lemon dairy as well. It is a fire strain right there. So the newest TrueLeave location is in Maricopa. Just opened on January 11th last month. So make sure to slide over there. If you can't get out to Maricopa, head over to trueleave.com and find your local shop and place an order and tell them that PHNX sent you. And, Valentine's Day is coming up, Saul. And one thing that you got to have under control is your self-care on Valentine's Day. And that's a fact. Now, Mando, head to toe, is where you need to go.
Mando.
If you want to be the Mando on Valentine's Day, you got to use Mando. Now, you can use this on your pits, your back, your butt, your balls, literally anywhere that you need to get right. It's a whole body deodorant, safe to use anywhere on your body, created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO, when you go to the doctor, it just gets misdiagnosed as something far more serious. When you don't have a real problem that you cannot solve with Mando. It's clinically proven to control body odor better than a shower with soap alone. 12 hours after a shower, the average man's grundle odor was a level of 5 out of 10. With Mando, the average grundle odor was 0 out of 10. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, and 2 free products of your choice. I got this little tube right here. That's what Espo got me when me and Damon earned our starter pack, thanks to the super chats. And you do have a super chat to get to after this as well. So make sure to use code PHNX for up to 40% off your starter pack. That is $5 off of your starter pack with shopmando.com, promo code PHNX. So make sure to support Mando and head to toe, be clean with Mando. Well, Saul, let's get into the by the numbers here, presented by Desert Financial Credit Union, America's #1 credit union, named by Forbes. Arizona shot 49% to BYU's 42%, and from beyond the arc, it was a similar story. Arizona outshooting BYU 38 to 29 percentage-wise. Assists 19 for our Wildcats, 14 for the Cougars, 12 turnovers to 10, and then Arizona losing in the stock market. I think for the first time maybe this season, Saul, not getting more stocks than their opponent. That steals plus blocks there. What stands out to you here, Saul?
I mean, for me, it's the 3-point shooting. I thought tonight they hit key threes, led by Caleb Love, obviously. I just thought that they were very consistent. And it wasn't, it wasn't anything crazy. I just thought that they just hit key threes at key times, and Caleb Love was obviously the biggest reason for that. But also, listen, we talk about Carter Bryant, but Henri Veesaar, he hit a 3 tonight, and it just looked too easy. It was net cash. Yeah, it was a big 3 too. And he was confident with it. I really loved what he did tonight. Overall, I just thought Arizona hit key threes at key times. Jaden Bradley, out of a timeout, hit a corner 3 that I thought was basically sealed the game. It just overall was great. But on top of that, I just love how they attack the paint too. And we didn't have points in the paint on that graphic. But oh my gosh.
42 to 36 in favor of Arizona, points in the paint.
I mean, they were attacking relentlessly. And I think that's something else that Arizona's learned over the course of the season. They stopped getting as trigger happy from 3. And they've really started to just pound the paint. And I think sometimes people think pounding the paint means it's just your bigs, right? And Tobe Awaka definitely in the first half has a lot to do with that. However, when you everybody talks about, coaches will tell you all the time about when you have good offense, that means that at some point somebody's touching the paint. and then kicking out or driving and penetrating, stuff like that, right? You got to touch the paint. And I think Arizona has done that better than a lot of teams in the country, and just getting to the paint and forcing the issue, getting easier buckets and not forcing long range shots when you're not really a high caliber 3-point shooting team. You kind of rely on the timeliness of your threes as opposed to the quantity. And that's what I think Arizona has learned a lot this year.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about, you know, the quality of these shots that Arizona is able to get, right, Saul, it's the shot selection, right, as well. Because one thing I wanted to talk about with that Veesaar three, especially, you talked about his confidence, right? That was not his first 3-point attempt. He has shot a 3-point attempt that looked a lot like that, and it was a brick earlier in the game. And so I like the persistence and the confidence in his game to still take that shot later when it meant more in the game and knock it down. I think this was. Ooh, I have another good question for you. Was this Henri Veesaar's most impressive performance of the season? It's close.
I mean, it was
because
good.
I think on the road against BYU, it's probably the best team he's balled out against, in my opinion. I'd have to go back and look to really check in and confirm that. But 17 points on 8 for 10 shooting, 1 for 2 from 3, 6 rebounds, and even an assist from Henri Veesaar. And not to mention, Henri Veesaar led the team yet again in plus 24 in just 21 minutes. So I think you could make an argument with the additional 2 steals and a block that I also forgot to mention there, that this was his best game of his Arizona career.
Either that or Baylor. I'm looking at the Baylor game right now. I'm like, oh yeah, Baylor. He had 19 points, 9 of 11 shooting, 1 for 1 from 3-point range, 7 rebounds, 4 steals. Or I'm sorry, 4 personal fouls. Never mind. You know, in that game.
Like, whoa, I forgot that one.
Remember, after that game, I talked to Corey. I was like, Corey, I think you sleep on Veesaar's athleticism because it's sneaky. It's sneaky really, good.
Yeah.
And so I think, listen, I think Veesaar is another guy that is just slowly developed. You're talking about making some stock with NBA scouts. I think NBA scouts are looking at a guy that's damn near, you know, is basically a 7-footer out there on the perimeter, shooting threes, athletic, can put the ball on the floor, can get to the rim, and is getting stronger by the day. Like, that's the other thing that you can't overlook, how strong he has been with the ball, how strong he has been in the paint. He used to be too timid and too soft and too weak, and now he has a lot of confidence. He's built for it. So I think he's another guy that's really slowly starting to surprise a lot of people and get on those radars.
Yeah, and I want to shout out to AZ Cats G with the $2 super chat that says, "Hi Kevin and Saul. What's up? Henry the Hammer looked good tonight," and we're talking about Henri Veesaar. I've been calling him the Snowman. Henry the Hammer is also really fire. But I think Henri Veesaar, you know, he's kind of had a lull, so to speak, in the last couple of games. Just hasn't been shining as bright as he had been in a couple games prior. But I'm really impressed with the way that Tommy Lloyd's been able to develop this year's talent, specifically, you know, the likes of a Henri Veesaar, right? Because the day one of this season player that Henri Veesaar and Tobe Awaka, for example, was full 180 to today. I think that's all credit to their hard work, right? But also this coaching staff finding the right role for these players and maximizing their talent. And that's when you get impact performances and almost 15 plus points from both Awaka and Veesaar tonight in Provo.
I think that's why I don't really panic about guys like Elijah Arenas not picking up Arizona's offer and opting to go to USC, because I just feel like I have a lot of confidence in what Tommy Lloyd's going to be able to bring into the program, right? And you've seen that. Now, I think it's a little bit of a fine tuning issue right now. So like Tommy Lloyd, like I like Anthony Del Orso. I think he's a good player, but I think that you can see when there's high level matchups, it has been very difficult for him to be able to get off and get, you know, some run and get some quality minutes. He struggled a lot tonight. It was funny because I literally wrote down like ADU not really producing much. You barely even know he's out there. And then as soon as I wrote it down, he had the layup and then he had the little drop off. And I was like, of course he did that right then and there. But then after that, he kind of disappeared again and he didn't really make much noise. And so I think you could see why they would want to bring in a guy like that because of his 3-point shooting and he is a good basketball player, but it's that fine tuning of low level Division I versus like high level Division I. And I think that's where ADO is kind of struggling right now to try and find his place. And so hopefully, as Tommy continues to evaluate the transfer portal and other areas, he'll be able to identify, like, no, this guy can play in the keyest of moments, in the toughest of environments in the Big 12, because this is no slouch of. I mean, every game this season, I've been like on the edge of my seat, like, oh man, we got to win this game. We got to win this game. I don't care if it's Colorado. We got Utah here in a couple weeks, and I'm like, we cannot let it down already. I'm like, we got to win these games, right? So it's just been fun to watch, man.
Man, I tweeted earlier. This conference is awesome, right? This is why you love college basketball. Is games like this in February and January. Yes, obviously you love the tournament and all of that, but the games leading up to the tournament where you find out, what your team is really made of, I think sometimes is the entire journey on its own, right? I think that's part of the fun. And I was going back and forth with someone on Twitter about this the other day, but I think that this is the start and this is the beginning of the feeling that Arizona fans are going to begin to relish and love, because I think what the Big 12 is to Arizona, obviously it's a lot of things, but one of the biggest things as it relates to basketball is it's a vehicle for Arizona to finally become the blue blood school that the fans all think Arizona is right now, right? The nation doesn't necessarily look at Arizona as a true blue blood, but Arizona fans, I think we all feel that, we deserve a piece of that blue cloth in a sense, right? But I think that it's going to take time. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it's going to be 1 year and poof, Arizona's a blue blood, but I think it's a much more treacherous but much more rewarding path through the Big 12 to become a true blue blood. And so, yeah, these games get me hyped. They get me excited because every game is a high resume builder.
I would say that Arizona is not a blue blood in the sense of, like, obviously the national championships and the Final Fours and those kind of things, right? But they do have brand recognition across the country when it comes to basketball. And so when it comes to brand recognition, I would say that they are a blue blood in that realm, right? When you're talking about great college basketball programs, regardless of their success in the tournament, you still talk about Arizona because they still get high caliber players. They have notable players. They have a notable coach. They've had notable coaches. And so in that regard, I agree. Also, I'm going to pivot a little bit. One of the other things tonight that I thought was very, very valuable was obviously Tobe Awaka and his rebounding. But I thought overall their rebounding was much better. In the first half, the rebounding was starting to become a problem because BYU wasn't getting the second chances and going to the rim. No, they were getting those second chances and kicking them out for threes and cashing in. And you could easily see a scenario where you're like, oh man, we're in for it tonight, man. These guys are just going to rain threes all night long, right? They cleaned it up. And that is so promising to look at a team that was able to adjust defensively and take advantage and really try to cut off what BYU was trying to get offensively, and then turn around and also limit them on the boards as well. And they were so much better in the second half on the boards and really limited BYU's opportunities. And that was the separator for me. They cleaned up the defense. They took advantage of the rebounds. And listen, I said this and I was kind of joking with Kellen Olson, who's also a U of A grad, but he also covers the Suns. He was talking about, Kevin Young's teams, blah, blah, blah. I was like, yeah, but Kevin Young's teams, as we both know, will fall apart in the fourth quarter. And sure enough, what happened in the last 8 minutes of the game? They fell apart. I've seen this movie before too many times.
That was a great pivot. I loved that. And I do want to talk about Tommy's in-game adjustments, right? That's kind of what you were alluding to, is the ability to adjust on the fly. Damon and I were kind of talking about, is that the missing piece for Tommy Lloyd as an elite head coach, quote unquote, right? Is the last piece just being able to augment and adjust your team on the fly in order to outcoach or outmaneuver another team, right? I think I want to have this conversation fairly to the player, but I think the biggest in-game adjustment that Tommy Lloyd made, and I'm being dead serious, is he got away from Trey Townsend. Trey Townsend, 10 minutes in the first half, 1 minute in the second half, right? And I'm not saying that to dunk on Mr. Townsend, but when I think Trey Townsend's a person that tries to get his offense going early. Lots of turnaround jumpers against taller people. I'm not a fan of those shots, right? It's the not getting his offense within the flow of the offense early that I think really hampers his ability to get a rhythm and then he starts forcing it. And then like we were talking about with Caleb Love, if you're not contributing, now your head's starting to, and now you're slower to get out to your man. And so I think it was kind of compounding for Trey Townsend tonight. And that's why he played 1 minute in the second half. But you were pointing it at me for a different reason. What do you think was Tommy Lloyd's biggest in-game adjustment tonight?
I actually thought you were going to talk about KJ Lewis. Him coming in on Hall in that second half. Hall was just getting buckets left and right.
That's a great point too.
That is true, Lost Highway. He might have been concussed for sure.
He might have been concussed. That's fair. Maybe that's not Tommy's. Maybe that's not a point to Tommy. Point to Provo's floors.
KJ Lewis coming in on Hall. And as soon as that happened, Hall did get to the basket, but that was also because he had no weak side help. Nobody was helping him defend the rim. They did a good job sealing off to clear out the lane for Hall, but that was the last bucket that Hall got against KJ, and KJ basically locked him up. KJ has absolutely become the Andre Iguodala of this team, just locking up guys left and right that need to be shut down. He's been the go-to guy. That is his calling card, and I think KJ's embraced it. He has not been able to score very, very well at a high clip at all in recent games, but he's been contributing in other areas, right? He's been able to be a facilitator. He's doing a lot of the dirty work that you're not really paying attention to. He's scrappy. His defense, he's just there was one point where I think it was maybe 3 or 4 minutes left to go in the game. They were trying to get the ball to Hall, and KJ just was not having it. And Hall was trying to push him off, and KJ wasn't going anywhere. I love that. And the ref didn't fall for it, like he wasn't blowing the whistle because KJ's being too physical. No, this dude's being just as physical with him, and KJ's not letting him have that space. That's great defense. That's what kind of defense. To me, that's what I have noticed about Arizona, and I'm not trying to get ahead of myself. I'm not saying we're going to the Natty or the Final Four or anything like that, but this is where you see the Big 12 level of play really starting to influence Arizona in the best possible way, because these small little things that they would have lapses on in the tournament in the past, I'm hoping you're seeing evidence of that being cleaned up. Like, we're not just going to let you have the ball and then I'm going to try and play my best defense and then watch you cook me for 30 in a crucial tournament game. That's not happening. No, you're just not going to get the ball straight up. I don't care if you have to if I have to mug you or whatever, like, you were just not going to feel comfortable at all out here. And that's what Arizona needs to do. They need to be the enforcer and not the enforcee. And I think that's the shift from going from the Pac to the Big 12 that I hope is going to pay off in the tournament.
I'm with you. And you mentioned KJ's ability to deny the ball and just be physical. And regardless of what the offense is trying to get him to do, he's not budging. I think there was a lesson learned. I forget exactly when in the game it happened, but there was a late shot clock situation with about 2 seconds left on the shot clock. KJ Lewis is trying not to foul, lets his man just go past him all the way to the hoop, because there was no help on that side of the court at the time, and he got the layup. And I didn't see KJ Lewis give up on a ball denial ever again after that. He was not letting anybody get by him. Screw the foul. I don't care. You're not getting to the hoop. And I said KJ Lewis is my favorite player to watch on this year's Arizona team. And everyone knows how much I love Caleb Love. But that's just because of the way that KJ Lewis plays basketball. He is everywhere. He plays at 1,000 miles a minute. And he doesn't care, and I mean this in a good way. He doesn't care if his shot's not falling, if he's 1 for 10 like he was last game. He's gonna still try to impact the game in every way that he can. And those are the players that set the tone for the rest of the locker room, right? Like, those are the players that everyone around them looks at them and says, "Oh, KJ's not shooting well, but he's still flying around on defense. Well, what am I doing not flying around on defense, right?" And then it's contagious. Now Jaden Bradley's flying around. I mean, Jaden Bradley always flies around, but you get the point I'm trying to illustrate here. Caleb Love, it makes it easier for Caleb Love to play elite defense as well. And I think that is going to be the differentiator this year for Arizona. I agree with you. The physicality, but just overall, the defensive aggressiveness, I think, is going to be able to separate Arizona from some of these other teams.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I just, again, I think these are the separators, and I think the players are adjusting and learning as we go as well. You just never know what the league is going to bring to you every single year, and especially when you go from one conference to a completely different one, and you feel that physicality, and you notice that that's just different. It really is just different. We play in more hostile environments. We have better overall teams that come into Tucson now. Like, this is going to pay off, I hope, this year. But I think overall it's just going to help this program build to be the dominant kind of program that they hope to be, and that we all hope them to be. So it is really encouraging to see those kind of small tweaks for sure.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit about more of this Arizona team as they project into the second half of their Big 12 conference play here. But first, I want to talk about some of our fine sponsors and a player of the game. There's a lot of good choices tonight, that is for sure. But don't go anywhere. It's the AZ Wildcats post-game show. Well, Saul, we're going to talk a little bit about our player of the game. And this player of the game is no stranger to driving hard to the basket. And if you need to drive anywhere in the world, you need to check out America's largest dealership, Sanderson Ford. Sanderson Ford is a proud sponsor of PHNX. We love our family over at Sanderson Ford. They will feed you at the Starliner Diner. They will help you get into the car of your dreams. There are some great people over there. They are not pushy salespeople. They are real people. And like I said, PHNX is proud to have Sanderson Ford as our official vehicle partner. Take the whole family in style and save $11 grand off a new Expedition. Hit the trails or make your own in, I love this name, the Bronco Badlands. Is there a cooler car name than the Bronco Badlands? I am unsure. Sanderson Ford has 28 styles to choose from with discounts up to $10,000 off. Purchase a new Edge for only $35,995. They also took in hundreds of quality trade-ins during the year-end sale and have 25 pre-owned vehicles with a warranty under 25 grand. For the best deals in 2025, choose Sanderson for a no hassle, no pressure, no nonsense experience and get more for your trade with easy on-the-spot financing. Drive into the new year in a new Ford from Arizona's most awarded Ford dealership, Sanderson Ford. Saul, Arizona was plus odds tonight. I was on the Wildcats for a nice little chunk of change. But if you were not in the PHNX headquarters, you should have been at Gila River Resorts and Casinos betting on our Wildcats, because you can do it all. Table games, great food, great entertainment, because you do you at Gila, right? So that's just where you do whatever you get to do. Be your best self at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. And if you want a chance at $5.9 million for this big game coming up, you can score more than just touchdowns. We're giving you the chance to win, like I said, $5.9 million with their free prop play. From January 27th to February 8th, visit GilaPropPlay.com and answer 26 questions about the big game for your shot at the grand prize. And if you answer all 26 questions correct, you might just win that $5.9 million grand prize. And score instant prizes from $5 to $100 and free bonus play while you're at it. You do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit playatgila.com for more details or check out the link in the description below. We do love our friends over at Gila River. And we also love our player of the game. Now, me and Saul went back and forth a little bit on this one, but we have decided to award it to none other than Jaden Bradley, who scored 17 points, secured 2 steals, and had 4 rebounds in this game. But as I'm sure Saul will explain, Jaden Bradley was the closer tonight for Arizona. I was kind of in favor of giving it to Tobe Awaka. Maybe even a shout for Caleb Love. Just an overall performance from Caleb Love. Rebounding, assists, steals, and points. But Tobe Awaka tenaciously down low. But Saul, why is Jaden Bradley your player of the game?
Listen, Tobe Awaka started the game off and got us going, right? Like physicality at the rim, physicality in the rebounds, defensively, he was solid. Like he just continues to improve game after game. It's really remarkable. So like definitely in the running there. And then Caleb and Veesaar kind of took over the middle of the game, right? Like, and then you have to have that closer. And to me, just like when I make an emphasis on, like, it does not matter who starts the game, it's who finishes, right? And to me, when Jaden Bradley is basically controlling the game the last several minutes of it, hitting clutch free throws to where, like, there is no doubt that we are going to win this game today. That to me is just the mark of a true professional basketball player. Like, Jaden Bradley's going to play a long, long time, in my opinion. Like, whether it be in the NBA or over in Europe, he's going to be a highly successful basketball player because his intangibles, his intelligence are just off the charts. And he showed that tonight. Didn't let anything rattle him. He was smooth. When he had the mismatch, he took advantage of it. He got guys involved. Defensively, he was solid as hell. Like, he's just Jaden Bradley. Like, Jaden Bradley is probably one of my top 15 all-time favorite Wildcats right now. And and he'll be in that top 10 if he can just get us to at least the Elite Eight. And then he'll be in probably the top 5 if he gets us to the Final Four. Because I love his demeanor. He never seems like he's rattled. Last year, I can't even explain this to you guys. Like, I was sitting there courtside, watching the tournament, and I'm watching Caleb Love struggle against Clemson, and I'm watching everybody else kind of a little shell shocked, a little bit trying to figure it out as the game's going on. It's not going the way they wanted to. Jaden Bradley was the only one out there that I looked dead in the eyes, and I could tell, like, oh, this dude is not effing around tonight. Like, he's going to try and save it. He's going to do everything he can to try and save us, and he did. He tried. And Jaden Bradley just carried that over into this season. That's why I just love the way he carried this out and really finished off the game.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think, I was thinking the word mentality that entire time when you were talking about Jaden Bradley's intangibles. I've always had a lot of respect for the way that Jaden Bradley seems to approach the game of basketball on the court out there, because, like you said, it is win at all costs. It is play until the buzzer. Jaden Bradley is a never say no, never say die kind of player, right? And that's the kind of guys that you love to have on Arizona.
Look at Hall. Like, Hall was killing the Wildcats for a little bit. And then they came back from that I think it was like 6 minutes, 33 seconds left. They called timeout, or it was a TV timeout, and they sat Hall for a couple minutes. And Jaden Bradley stayed on the court. Because you know why? Because Jaden Bradley doesn't come out of games. Not in crunch. That's crunch time. What are you doing? Like, again, Kevin Young. Like, I just not a fan. Just not a fan. So Jaden Bradley is just not going to come out of the game at that point. He's built for this. Like, and so I just, like I said, I can't say enough good things about Jaden Bradley. Also, I don't know why this is the case, but, like, you ever, like, watch a basketball player and you either you just don't like him, like, just don't like their game.
Definitely.
Like, there was 2 guys on BYU tonight where I was like, so my son came in. I was like, hey, watch this. This guy's going to get the ball again, and he's going to shoot because he's been shooting all game and he hasn't hit anything. You're going to watch this broke jumper. And sure enough, kid caught it in the corner, chucked it up, missed it. I was like, this dude's so garbage. Mawat Mag, not a fan. Not a fan at all. Mag, I thought he was just not a fan. Catchings, same thing. Those two were basically the same
was
player.
Was the Mag empty?
Oh my God, the mag was absolutely just chuck it in the river because it ain't working. It was terrible. Catchings and Mag, every time they shot the ball, I was like, that's a good shot for us. Like, it just was. So anyway,
yeah, and ironically, I believe Catchings coming into the game had a 44% 3-point percent coming into this game, I believe. He was one of their best shooters when I was looking into it, but he doesn't get a lot of usage, and now I see why. Now I see why, right? Just not ready. He looked pretty green. Like, I would describe him as green. Like, he just needs some seasoning on that guy. But yeah, when you and I were texting about this, I was inclined to give it to Tobe Awaka. Now, I think if obviously he was dominant at times in this game tonight, but I think most of the reason why I wanted to give to Tobe Awaka was almost like a cumulative award, right? Because one thing I wrote down in my notes when I was watching this game was, quote, Tobe Awaka is tenacious, and then, quote, Tobe Awaka's got touch now? Because there were a couple shots where he was kind of just
the floater,
couple floaters, and I'm thinking, oh no, don't let Tobe Awaka get a little short game, because now you got to worry about him going up strong. You got to worry about him just facing up. Like, that's something that I only speak for myself, but that's something that Damon and I did not think he was going to have in his bag this year, maybe ever, right? And I think
Midi Awaka, what?
Midi,
no. Didn't even see that coming at all.
Yeah, no, that was crazy to me, because, and that's kind of why I wanted to give him the player of the game, because he was everywhere. And I hadn't said that about Tobe Awaka all year. Now, obviously, people loved watching Tobe Awaka this season, right? But tonight's the first night where I'm like, oh, he just grabbed that offensive rebound for a putback. Now he's contesting a shot on the other end. Oh, did he just shoot a mid-range? And he's passing it back out to the three-point line. I think I've said it, I sound like a broken record, but Tommy Lloyd was talking up Tobe Awaka when he was struggling this season, saying he just needs more time in my system. And sure enough, with time, Tobe Awaka has become one of the pivotal cogs in this system, to be honest with you. And I'm blown away with Tobe Awaka's development. We talk about Henri Veesaar. We talk about Caleb Love getting out of this struggle. We talk about KJ Lewis upping his defensive acumen. It's time we talk about Tobe Awaka becoming not only one of the best rebounders this team has, but one of the best rebounders in the country.
Well, it's remember at the when we were struggling, we were 4-5, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, this Awaka Townsend lineup is terrible," and blah 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 blah. We need Veesaar and Carter all the time and stuff like that, right? And I got the sentiment. I understood the sentiment for sure. However, like there is such thing as kind of working your way into a new system, which is obviously the case for Townsend and Awaka, and one of those two has developed with the system and gotten better as the season has gone on. The other one has struggled still. And I don't know if Tommy would have opted to sit down Townsend in the second half had it not been for maybe the concussion or an injury. But you've got to start to take away his minutes if he's not going to be as productive as you need him to be. And tonight was not his night. It wasn't at any point tonight. And I do like the fact that he is now relying on Awaka is an absolute reliable piece for him and a necessity, especially after you lost Krivas. And then you bring in Veesaar. Veesaar and Awaka on the court is a tough matchup for anybody in the paint. And then you can rotate any one of those out with Carter Bryant. And it's just the flexibility there is just unbelievable. And so I've been really excited to see how this team, I just feel like every player has developed something in their game and shored up something that they were weak at the beginning of the season. And the team as a collective has also done the same thing. And that is the sign of a good coach, a well-run program. From top to bottom, are your players developing and getting better as the season goes on? Yes, then that's good. If they just are stagnant, then you probably aren't doing what you need to do. And I felt like there was times, in previous eras and teams where, you kind of had these highs and then you kind of had a lull. You were still playing at a high level, but it never felt like you were improving in some of these areas where you needed to improve, because inevitably when you get to the tournament, you're going to match up with a team that fits you and your weaknesses perfectly. And you've got to make sure you shore those up. It's just fantastic that this coaching staff is really developing these guys to make sure that there's not a lot of weaknesses. Right now, if there was any one weakness for Arizona, it's the lack of consistency from three-point range. But that could change if Caleb Love is on one. You know what I'm saying? So, man, it's just great to see. I'm just really proud.
And not only that, with the shooting is not something that you can just. I guess it is something you can develop over the course of a season, but that to an extent, I feel like that's either your roster has shooters or your roster doesn't have shooters, right? Yeah. And Arizona's roster does not have. I think ADO is the only true shooter on the roster, right? Caleb Love is a shooter, right? But I think it is kind of waxing and waning in a way. Whereas where ADO's shot, I think obviously he doesn't have the volume or the responsibility on either side of the ball that Caleb Love does. But my point here is Arizona's roster does not have the shooters required. But your point brings me to something I've been starting to rumble and put out there into the ether. See how people feel about it, right? I think depending upon how this year ends, if this year goes past the Sweet 16, I think this might be Tommy Lloyd's best coaching job. I think we're at that point where we can confidently say this is Tommy Lloyd's best job from a player development standpoint, from a keeping the locker room together standpoint, because let's not forget when Arizona was below 500 in November, right? Tommy Lloyd was talking about, let's make sure this roster doesn't splinter. Let's make sure these players stay together. They come home from Christmas hungrier and better than ever. And now, I think lots of Arizona fans haven't forgot about the struggles earlier in the year, but I think the level of play has shown Arizona fans, that's not even the same team that you're getting now. It's a totally different roster, even though it's the same exact players. So I think this might be Tommy Lloyd's best coaching job, regardless of the result, to be honest with you.
I would agree with you. And listen, I spoke to ESPN analyst Jimmy Dykes last week, and that you can go back and see that video on our page. But he said, they were 4-5, and he had just talked. He was talking to Tommy in the Bahamas, and Tommy's like, I don't know about this team. I don't know how they're going to develop. I don't know where they're going. It's tough. It's tough right now, and for him to be able to figure it out and figure out the way to approach and tweak certain things to get the very best out of these players, and to sit there at 4-5 and then do a kind of an overhaul mid-season and shift everything around and get back on track is a hell of a job, and it can't be overlooked. Not a lot of teams that start off 4-5, they struggle, and they have their ups and downs for the remainder of the year. It never really flips. There's only a very few select teams that can actually flip the switch, and Arizona found a way to flip the switch, and now they're sitting at 10-1 at top of the Big 12, and that's a large reason because of Tommy and his coaching staff, and it's the coaching staff too. I don't want to take anything away from everybody else on that staff. They do a tremendous job. They've got a lot of connectivity, a lot of continuity, and Toby should be proud of what these guys have done so far. A lot of work left to do. We're not celebrating. We're not crowning anybody or anything like that. But you got to be happy with the way they have been able to bounce back after a rough start and what looked like could be one of Tommy Lloyd's worst seasons. And now we're talking about, man, if they continue, they go on and they go 17-3 or 18-2. You got to talk about Tommy Lloyd as the coach of the year in the Big 12 after they started 4-5. You just have to. That's maybe even national coach of the year. That's how good they've been. Like, phenomenal. Also, can we give a shout out to Caleb Love?
Oh, definitely, of course. I'm down for a Caleb Love shout out.
Caleb Love, 1,000 points in a University of Arizona uniform. The 45th player or 34th player?
So he was the 56th player in Arizona history
to do that. Yeah, and he's about to pass the 2,500 mark. Yes. In his college career too, which is just unbelievable. Like, the guy's just a supreme scorer. Fantastic job tonight and really leading the Cats. And
fourth.
He's Caleb Love.
Fourth player under Tommy Lloyd to reach 1,000 points in an Arizona uniform, by the way.
Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to talk about
4 players in 4 years have gotten 1,000 points.
Exactly. I was going to say, you want to talk about, form fitting a team around certain guys. I mean, yes, there are similarities, but the anchors of Tommy Lloyd's offenses year over year have definitely shifted. Even though Caleb Love was the anchor of this offense last year, it was not the same Caleb Love that showed up on campus day one this year. Now, he's working back to that, right? But I think Tommy Lloyd, again, I'm impressed not only with Caleb Love, but with Tommy Lloyd for getting 4 guys in their best, most maximized position in the scheme to score 1,000 points in an Arizona uniform. So congratulations to Caleb Love on yet another milestone.
As we sit here right now, about to wrap up the show, Arizona sits, according to Joe Lunardi, as the 5 seed in the South in Atlanta. The 5 seed, his projection would have them playing McNeese, and then a second round matchup with potentially Grand Canyon if they were to get past the 4 seed Memphis. So that would be kind of cool to see.
That'd be very fun.
I would be hyped to see that, but obviously a lot of left to go. And if that tickles your fancy, this might even do you more. He also has ASU as a projected first 4 out. Bummer.
I mean, TBD on that one. They might not even make it to that far if they can't. Look, I'm going to put it like this: if you're down 1 at home at the free throw line with 2 free throws, a tournament team wins that. I don't care who's at the line. All right, it could be Shaq with blinders on. All right, you need to win that game.
I'll say this, man. I watched this situation. I believe it was Memphis back in the day. Memphis was playing Louisville, I think, in the Conference USA Championship. I'll never forget this. Guy's last name was Washington. I forgot what his first name was, but got fouled at the buzzer on a 3. And he had to hit 2 of the 3 free throws to send it into overtime. He missed the first one. He made the second one. And then he missed the third one. And my heart, because that was for the conference championship. That was a conference tournament championship. and the kid just broke down and cried right there on the free throw line. I felt so bad for him. I hate the Scummies, but Quinnance is 17 and a half years old, and he missed those 2 free throws. Oh, that's a tough one. I feel for the kid. Not the program.
Yeah,
the kid.
You feel for the individual. Yeah. I was watching that with.
If a tournament happens and ASU's not there to see it, did it really happen? Yeah, because it happens every single year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to divulge too far, but real quick, just on that specific moment, I was watching that with Eric Ruby of our ASU pod.
Thank you, 535 Fit.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was watching that with Eric Ruby, and when we were looking at Jaden Quains' face, we kind of just said, like, I don't think he wants these free throws. Like you know how you can tell when a player does or doesn't want the moment. Yeah. It didn't look like he wanted that that moment. So yeah, I do feel bad for the kid, but not for the program. Well-deserved loss in Tempe tonight.
They got DP'd by Wildcats this week. I mean, Kansas State, Arizona, bang bang.
On that note, Saul, we will kind of wrap this one up here. Any last notes that you want to kind of talk about as Arizona's next game is going to be, sorry, off the top of my head. Oh yeah, Texas Tech at home.
Saturday night, 8:00. Yeah, Texas Tech at home. Mikhail, I'll be there. Y'all should come out and holler at your boy. I'll be over there in the media section.
Yeah, that's gonna be a huge game. You want to talk about cementing your spot atop the Big 12? I mean, there's so many opportunities for that, but that is the latest opportunity for Arizona to do that. I know I'm excited. I will be here. Damon, I think, will be back for that post-game show. So we'll have it all for you on Saturday. Tomorrow, Saul and I are back at noon, breaking down all of this and then some. And yeah, overall, Arizona stamps themselves tied still with Houston 10-1 atop the Big 12 in a statement-making victory in Provo as they down the Cougars. Go a little Cougar hunting in Provo, and it was a great game. Encapsulation of what makes Big 12 basketball great in a sense, and I am electrified for the rest of the schedule. Unless Saul has anything else to say, we're gonna get up out of here.
Man. Hey, it's going to be fun. I'm excited to join you tomorrow and also on Friday. And then also I'm writing a new little series. It's called Catnips. Basically is going to be, one kind of lengthy story on whatever, and then a bunch of nuggets from Arizona athletics. So if you want to catch up on what's going around in terms of gymnastics, softball, baseball, basketball, doesn't matter. There's going to be nuggets all the way throughout that you can take a look at and enjoy. So, and if you feel froggy, hit me up on social and let me know what you think. If you want more news on something else, let me know. I'm happy to write it because I got nothing else to do. I am a part of PHNX, but I'm not a part of PHNX. And so I just work in isolation in my dungeon. So any friends are always welcome.
Saul is in the walls at PHNX always. But yeah, no, I just want to shout out everyone in the chat. Thank you all for staying up late with us tonight on this late night edition of another post-game show. If you haven't already, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It means the world to me and my usual co-host Damon Dog, but it also means the world to Saul. And yeah, I just want to thank each and every one of you. I love doing this show. It has been a huge opportunity for me, and I love coming on and covering Arizona sports, especially right after the games wrap up. That is my favorite bit to do. So for myself, Kevin Thomas, and the great Saul Bookman on the other side of my screen right here, it has been another edition of the AZ Wildcats podcast post-game show. Check us out tomorrow at noon. Bear down, go Cats.
We all silly like the mayor.